Hello everyone, I'm Sven Ronning, and this is Violin Axioms, the channel where we break violin technique down into very simple, bite-sized ideas that have almost universal applicability to how to play better. So to learn many more of these axioms, be sure that you subscribe to the channel. Okay, today we're going to work on a very big project, and it's a project that employs a lot of axioms all at once. And I'm going to call this chapter Learning the Fingerboard Systematically. And I can't think of a better way of doing this than using a book by a pedagogue named Gaylord Yost. Gaylord Yost, Y-O-S-T. And the book is called Exercises for the Change of Position. It is just really a fabulous book for learning where everything sits on your fingerboard. It is out of print and has been for a very long time, but you can find it out there in the ether these days. It's in public domain in most places, I think, although that is not legal advice. So have a look and see if you can't find it that way. It's an incredibly useful tool for learning the fingerboard. It is basically a dictionary of every possible shift from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E, etc., and then starting from point B to point C to point A. It's just a permutative dictionary of shifts, basically. So it's kind of boring to listen to when being practiced. And if you're not doing it right, it's boring to practice it too. However, if you're doing it right, I think it's really quite fascinating because there's so many different components on how to practice. In his preface to Exercises for the Change of Position, Gaylord Yost writes the following, and I'm quoting verbatim. The following instructions should be carefully followed. 1. Each measure must be repeated at least 10 times before passing on to the next. Practice slowly. 2. Use great care in keeping the thumb free. Do not press it too firmly against the neck of the instrument. A disregard of this important rule is fatal. And by thumb, I think Mr. Yost means the left thumb, and making sure that you don't squeeze it as you shift. So a loose thumb is what we need. And 3, in changing the position, the slide is executed with the finger used preceding the change, and the finger must not be pressed too firmly upon the string in sliding. Okay, and then Mr. Yost gives the following example. Okay, this is, by the way, also known as a classical shift. It means that when you shift, you always shift to the new position on the old finger and then drop into the new position and do the same on the way down. Okay, so you could, I suppose, take that to the logical extreme that that you would, for example, if you started with a higher finger in the low position and went up to a lower finger in the higher position, that you'd exchange like that. But I think that that doesn't really make sense in the way that violinists actually play. So the only time that this applies, at least in the way that I like to interpret this last piece of advice, is that if you're going from a lower finger to a higher finger on the way up, and from a higher finger to a lower finger on the way down, use that classical shift, meaning travel, drop, travel, lift. But if you're going from a higher finger to a lower finger on the way up, or from a lower finger to a higher finger on the way down, then do an exchange shift, where somewhere in between you will exchange the fingers. Okay, you may have heard there the thing that makes this potentially the most boring, and that is that each measure must be practiced at least 10 times. But this is a great way for practicing those axioms that we've been talking about in this channel. All the little things that you can work on to improve your playing that often you don't really actually have time and bandwidth to think about while you're playing. It's something that you have to be focused on in exercises and just very, very basic warm-ups. So in that respect, this is perfect. It allows you to do something quite repetitive, important, but not too taxing in and of itself. And then you can go through these different axioms. So what I'm going to, I'd like to cover are 3 different kinds of shifts that you can do. And they are covered in the book. And then also, I'm going to try and summarize not just 10 axioms, but A to Z, 24 axioms that you could concentrate on while you're doing these shifts to improve your playing. So if you look in the book, you'll see that the first section is all the shifts that can be done from first to second position. And it starts in the E string, and you just basically do 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 2, 3 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 3, and 4 to 4. And then that on all the other strings as well. Mr. Yost arbitrarily assigns key signatures to this. He gives 2 sharps in the opening here, and then reduces the sharps by 1 as he goes down the strings. And this is just so that the spacing of the frame, the spacing of the fingers on each string stays the same for some consistency. The keys are related by a fifth, just like your strings. But what I think he's really after here, I think you could practice this in any number of keys, and I think that's a good idea. For our first pass through working on Yost, I think the keys that Mr. Yost puts in his book are just fine. So from first to second position is a very small shift. You could even think of this as being a finger shift in some situations, meaning, well, let me first say that there are 3 basic big motions you can shift just using a finger from one position to the next, like F sharp to G would be first to second position, and I just move the finger. I don't recommend using too many finger shifts because I think it changes the angle of your fingers and that messes around with your intonation. But it is technically something you can do. So a finger shift is something. Then there's an arm shift where you can see that I'm using the forearm here to make a motion. If I was moving, for example, from first to third position, I'd be doing that. If I'm moving from first to seventh position, I'm also engaging that upper arm more to get me up there, or higher yet. Okay, so when I'm using bigger positions, particularly the ones where I go around the bout of the instrument, then I'm doing a shoulder shift. And I think that I'd like to at least go through arm shifts and shoulder shifts with you in this video. So let's first maybe just go through how to do these shifts, and I'm going to do first to third position. And I'm not going to do this 10 times each, but I'm just going to do 1 or 2 times each. Just so you can hear how to practice them, and then we'll go through some of the different axioms that you could think about. So here is first to third in 2 sharps, starting from F sharp to A, and I'm going to just do 2 repetitions of each Yost shift. Okay, so I hope you could notice that how with some of these I was using the classical shift when I'm going from a lower finger to a higher finger going up and from a higher finger to a lower finger going down. And in others I was using the exchange shift when I'm I hope you could also see that I'm moving the hand as a unit. And there's a lot of things that you probably couldn't see, like I'm thinking about where my thumb goes, where my shoulders go. Maybe you could also see, hopefully, that my bow was straight while I was doing that. Okay, these are, by the way, arm shifts, right? As I was saying, I'm using the forearm, I'm trying to move the whole hand as a single unit. I'm really trying to pay attention to the location of every note in the collection. Okay, so now I'd like to go through all the shifts between first and seventh position. In Yost's book, this is on page 14. First to seventh position is the shoulder shift that I was talking about before, where I actually initiate with more of the whole shoulder. You've heard me say on the channel before of flying over the pole. If I'm going to go up big distances, I'm going to move in a hoop by actually dropping my shoulders back and then raising from the elbow first and then coming around in a hoop, right? Flying over the pole, because the motion kind of imitates this motion of an airplane route on a map, right? That it looks like a hoop rather than a line. And that is what I'm going to be working on in these larger shifts. Okay, so I'm going to just model these same shifts from first to seventh position. A way I would recommend working on these actually is not to work on them too much in any given day, but just say 5 minutes a day, or if you're really ambitious, 5 minutes at the beginning of every hour that you're going to practice, because it's a way of reminding your body how to do things correctly. But here I have written, or I have created 24 A to the Z, in other words, things to think about as you do each of these shifts. So they are things that you can be checking in on when you're repeating each shift over and over to make sure that you can do this and to make sure that you put in all the habits and assimilated all the axioms. So these are a summary of axioms, of many of the axioms you could work on. Okay, so for example, if I just do this, maybe the first thing I'm asking myself is, what notes am I playing? Okay, here it might help if I had the music in front of me, but learning to name the notes so I actually know what notes I'm doing and how they look on the page, particularly in high positions. That's a useful thing, so you get good at reading ledger lines. I could ask myself, what is the interval? This is something we haven't covered in Violin Axioms, but if you are starting to learn your intervals, I could ask myself, what is that interval? It's a minor seventh, so that I get better at understanding intervals. I could ask myself, what are the two positions I'm in? First position and seventh position. Okay. D, or number 4, I guess. What do these two positions look like on the page? Again, this is like, what are the notes I'm playing? What do they look like, okay? That's the reading portion of this, okay? E, can I hear the notes before I play them? So if I can look at these notes and hear them before I play them, so before I do even the first of my 10 repetitions, can I hear it? If I can, I'm getting better at sight reading and anticipating translating what I see into what I'm going to hear. F, are they in tune? I could do this by practicing with a metronome, or rather a tuner. I could practice with a tuner. I could also be listening for that overtone halo that we've talked about in the channel. Making sure that I really hear the ringing of each note. Okay. G, is the hand moving as a unit? I want to make sure that I'm not just moving part of my hand or leaving the thumb behind or whatever. So is my hand moving as a unit so that the intonation is not warped by changing the shape of the hand? Okay, H, what I just said with the thumb specifically, making sure that the thumb is traveling with the hand. Okay, and making sure that the thumb is also paying attention to where it is on the neck as part of tasting what the seventh position is like. If it knows where the seventh position is on the neck, you've got twice as much information about the location of your notes. Okay, I, how is the frame? If the notes are spaced like this, in the key of E in the first position, what are they spaced like in the seventh position? Actually, they're spaced like this. So figuring that out, knowing the whole steps and whole half steps of each frame is important. So what is the frame? J, we've talked about reaching beyond and pulling back to the thumb for better intonation, or as the sort of ironic way of saying it, better sharp than out of tune, right? Being slightly sharp so that when the pressure comes down and the pull to the thumb takes place, the hand locks into perfect intonation. We don't want to be sharp, but we aim sharp because we know that when we apply pressure, our fingers will go slightly flat. So that means shifts going up are slightly too big, shifts going down are slightly too small, so that we're always slightly sharp. Okay. K, am I buttressing the fingers? So in a classical shift, this just means when I drop, the lower finger remains in place and helps hold me in place. Remember that the buttress idea, we've talked about this in other parts of the channel, is that you have a finger down underneath the finger that you're using, and that is helping to hold you in place so that you don't have to squeeze as hard. So whenever possible, we don't want the fingers to be merely independent, but interdependent on each other to make sure that everything is straight and well supported. Okay, L. Are my muscles heavy and relaxed? Remember early on in this process of axioms, we talked about giving your violin a massage, that if your muscles are heavy and relaxed like a masseur, you're going to make the violin purr better. So I want to make sure that my muscles are loose and going to give a good amount of sound. All right, M, are my shoulders back and down, right? And my violin high, okay? When I'm going for these high positions in particular, if I drop my shoulders, it's much easier to get around. So for these shoulder shifts, I'm going to drop the shoulders and come around with my elbow. And that's going to make the ease of getting around much better. All right. N is my bow straight. Remember we covered the shoulder, shoulder, elbow, shoulder, elbow, shoulder for pulling a straight bow all the way. Or unfolding the wing, to say it like that, on a bird. So that is going to be an additional thing to think about. O, how is my tone? I'm trying to build the best tone I can. P, are the tips of my fingers on the left side of the string? Remember we said if we reach to the left too far, a little bit too far, and then let the string itself act almost like as a hook to hold our fingers in place, so that we don't have to press extra hard to keep them down, but just use the hook of the string to help hold them in place. So keep left when you put your fingers down. Q. Am I saving the X, Y, Z coordinates of my notes? Meaning, do I have a finger down, a buttress down, and the thumb? And have I saved that for first position and seventh position so that I'm learning exactly what the 3 feet of the stool or the 3 coordinates in 3 dimensions are to help me find those notes back, okay? R, is my balance good? Are my joints, are my knees nice and loose? Am I moving easily? Is my head in the right place, meaning back and down? So are my joints in a position that is strong but flexible? Flexibility and balance. That can also be, you can also be thinking about where your feet should go with that. All right, S, can I play with a beautiful full sound without vibrato? Can I give beautiful vibrato? Can I do without vibrato beautifully? And then T, can I vibrate this note? If you can't vibrate, and we haven't had a vibrato conversation on this channel yet, but vibrato is a good proxy for how relaxed you are. So if you can vibrate, it means you're probably more relaxed. So can I vibrate each note? Maybe I want to practice popping the vibrato, meaning that when I ride, maybe I want to pop that vibrato so that I'm getting a beautiful sound right on the edge of it. Okay, so pop vibrato is a great way to make a beautiful sound. Okay? Okay, U, flying over the pole. This is the idea again of moving in the circle. Okay, just remembering that. V, is my elbow in the right place? So for my elbow to be in the right place, as I was saying, I want all of the fingers to be on the left side of the string. That probably is going to mean that my elbow is going to need to be up and around, a little bit more than what is ideally comfortable. The up first allows me to rotate much more easily. If I try to rotate around without the up, I'm going to feel a lot more pressure right in my shoulder, in my rotator cuff, and that can get uncomfortable. So just remembering to go up before you go around there, okay? Some of these, I sound like I'm repeating myself a little bit, don't I? Okay. All right, how is my breathing? Okay, if you're holding your breath while you're playing, that's gonna show up in your sound. If you're breathing shallowly, that's also gonna show up. So just monitor yourself, almost like doing yoga or something, just really making sure that your breathing is easy. And this is almost rehearsing for performing, that if you have good breathing, calm breathing, as you practice, hopefully that will translate into your performing as well. All right, are my hands moving at the same speed? Maybe you've heard, we talked about synchronization and how the best way to play is to move the hands at the same speed. Now with these big shifts, I don't want to hear a big old smear in the sound necessarily. So often I'm going to have to shift faster than I move the bow. But if I do that, I still want it to be related somehow to the speed of the bow. And as we've talked about before in the channel, making sure that I'm shifting fast departure, slow arrival, so I don't crash land on the new position. but that I get there really in tune. Okay, so I can slow down the way an airplane slows down as it approaches the runway, the destination, in other words. Okay. Why? Am I initiating the shift with the big muscles and controlling the arrival with the small muscles? This is that idea. We haven't talked about it really yet in the channel, but when I make a big motion like this, obviously I'm going to be using my shoulder and elbow and all of that. But ultimately, when I arrive, it's my little muscles right in my fingers that are going to do the final pinch that is going to connect to the fingerboard. So I'm going to be powering the motion with the big muscles that are coming from my core, but I'm going to be controlling the notes with the small muscles in my fingers. So when I actually commit, when I pop into a note, that's going to be the tiny muscles in my bow hand and the tiny muscles in my left hand that are going to grab the note and commit to this is the note. But I'm going to power that motion with the big muscles. All right. And the last one, Z. This is one we have not yet talked about either. But when I move, as much as possible, I want to think about walking or recycling momentum. Whenever I make a motion, right, I don't want it to freeze and stop. It should turn around, and the momentum should just simply start to move the other direction. The best example I can think of this is like walking, right? We don't take individual steps with individual effort, but we take a step and then the momentum we create is maintained by the next step that we take. As we take a down bow, the momentum of the end of the down bow, as much as possible, gets recycled into the up bow. As we make a shift up, the momentum is recycled coming down. Every motion is a little bit different, so the recycling process is a little different for each thing, but I want to be looking for that and conserving as much energy as possible. Okay, so there are 24 different ideas for what to work on. So you're not going to be able to cover all of those in a single setting, or I would not recommend doing something 24 times to check on that. But there are things that you can work on as you practice. So I'm now just going to model going from 1st to 7th position on the E string, page 14 of the Yost book, and I'm going to do 10 times. And you're welcome to play along with me if you like, but the idea here is to use as many of those, review the axioms, check in with your body, make sure that you're doing all of that stuff. And if you make that a habitual part of your playing, then of course it will translate into everything else that you do on the instrument. Okay, here we go with 1st to 7th position. That might be too many. Okay, I am certain that I probably didn't do all of those 10 times each. I'm pretty certain I probably did several of them more than 10 times each. And that's just because I got involved myself in thinking about what am I doing? What am I really doing? What do I need to work on? Listening to my body, listening to the notes, imagining what good playing is like, and what I can do to make my own playing closer to that ideal. So the point isn't to do 10 times to do 10 times. The point is to be mindful as you repeat so that you can build all these new ideas into your playing and really get at ease with them so they become part of who you are. Okay, so scales and these Yost exercises for just sort of reminding your body how to do everything and to put all the simple components together to make the playing of a musical instrument easier by doing very, very simple things several times with different things in your mind each time, so that they get built into who you are as a player. More the next time. I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.